Hello, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, controversy in Morocco over a once-pardoned paedophile. Could the public outcry lead to stronger protections against child sex abuse? Malika Bilal is our digital producer. She's always looking out for your live feedback. But we did this story about a week ago online, and the web extra, as we call it, was on the stream. The headline was "Paedophile Arrested, but Danielgate Continues." Hashtag Danielgate Continues. 27,000 people clicked on this one story, right, which is really one of the reasons why we're doing it today.
And yet that's just a drop in the bucket among the people that are talking about this story online and the people that are filling the streets of Morocco to declare their protest against it.
Sure.
I pulled up a picture on my screen here using that hashtag that you mentioned, Danielgate. This is of a candlelight vigil yesterday in the Rabat, in the capital of Morocco. So of course we want to hear from you to join this conversation. Let us know what you think. Just make sure you use the hashtag AJStream.
Also joining us in the studio is Lubna Hanna. She is a professor of international development at American University. She also researches issues on Morocco. I'm so impressed because we've only just got started. She's already written some notes. Lubna, it is great to have you back here in the stream. You'll be hearing much more from her in just a moment. Now, the case of a once-pardoned paedophile has sparked an uproar in Morocco since last week's royal pardoning and then re-arrest of convicted child rapist Daniel Galvan. Thousands of Moroccans have taken to the streets to protest the scandal known as Danielgate. Galvan had been sentenced to 30 years in prison for raping 11 children. The government said that the pardon was a mistake and fired its prison services director. King Mohammed also met with victims' families, and his office admitted that the pardon was an error. But the response hasn't been enough for some who feel the case shows that the lawmakers have lax attitudes towards child sex offenders and a reluctance to discuss the often taboo issue of child sex abuse. So could this public outcry lead to stronger protections against sexual exploitation of children in Morocco? To help us discuss this subject, with us via Skype in Casablanca, we have Reda Oulamin. He is a human rights lawyer and president of the Moroccan NGO Law and Justice. And also in Casablanca, we have Fadel Abdellaoui. He is a human rights activist and one of the organisers of a recent Danielgate protest. Fadel, Reda, Lubna, it's great to have all of you here on the programme. I really want to start with Reda. Reda, in your law work, when you go around and you look at cases of child sex tourism, I want you just to give us a very vivid example so we know exactly what we're talking about and our audience understand it as well. Can you tell us a story, an example where you came across it in Morocco?
Well, first, thank you again for inviting me. To set off the right context for this conversation, I would like to tell you and remind everybody that Morocco is not a country governed by the rule of law. And as part of this, there's a lack of enforcement of laws. We have good laws, but very often they are not enforced. And this becomes extremely problematic when victims are from a poor social status. In this case, there can be no enforcement whatsoever. So to give you a precise example, a street kid could be a victim of sex abuse, of rape, walk into a police station or into a court and say, I have been abused. The abuser will not be prosecuted. Why? Because the victim is poor. Now, if it was the other way around, so rich complaining about poor, prosecution and arrest of the poor complaining about rich, no, most of the time, most likely, I'm not making a sweeping statement, I'm not generalizing, but unfortunately, too often, that's what happens.
I really want to show everybody this quote from Galvan and his court case. Lubna, I really want you to check this out as well. The judge says to him in his court case, "Why did you come to Morocco to abuse children?" He replies, "Because it's cheap and with money you can get anything you want." How did this happen to Morocco? There are other places around the world where this happens, but why Morocco in particular?
Well, it's not Morocco in particular. I think that it's very important. Of course, this is a Moroccan case we're discussing today, sure. But sexual exploitation of children within the context of tourism or rape, as Reda just mentioned, or any other forms of exploitation, wherever you see poverty, Wherever you see tourism as an important source of income for the country, you're going to see the vulnerable being exploited. So it isn't specifically Morocco, but tourism, sex tourists, predators follow cheap, wherever that is. And Morocco is going through, the kind of economic crisis with a large fringe, the population needing money. And the price for it is, vulnerable children being exploited.
So we spoke to the Ministry of Tourism's office earlier on today, and they refused to give us an interview, but they did allow us to speak to their spokesperson, the Rizal Gabari. We asked her about the child sex tourism issue in Morocco. This is what she said. Have a listen to this.
As per Morocco as a sexual destination, we cannot say so because there is no serious study that can give numbers that can make Morocco a sexual destination. In other countries, there is cases of sex abuses, of pedophilia, but what we should keep in mind is that in a Muslim and Arabic country like Morocco, we talk about these cases, we debate, and we work on solutions. That's important. We must keep in mind that in Morocco, this question is no more taboo, not in like in other countries, and this is a part of the solution.
See, I'm hearing pushback here from the spokeswoman for the Ministry of Tourism. Lubna, you're shaking your head. Malika's shaking her head too. So let's go to the community first, and Lubna, we'll come back to you.
Sure. Right. Well, the community definitely disagrees with what the spokeswoman just said. Bilal on Facebook says pedophilia is a global problem, yes, but the reason the Spanish citizen went to Morocco to molest kids is because it was not easy for him to do it in Spain. Now, Lubna, I want your thoughts on that, but first, there's a video comment directly going against what the spokeswoman just said. Have a listen to this.
Sure.
There are reports that Morocco's Minister for Tourism is denying that sex tourism even exists in the country. I guess if I had an opportunity to speak to him, I would say that a government denying sex tourism exists denies victims' voices. And I would also say to him that there is absolutely no shame in protecting children.
So she says this denial is basically denying victims' voices.
Right. I find denial very problematic. And again, one of the hardest problems any country has, is to actually admit that they have these serious problems. If we are here, if we are at this moment in Morocco and outside of Morocco trying to solve this problem, the very first step is to accept the fact that we have a problem. And we have, and I would love to be reassured and convinced that there is a societal conversation about this. That is not the case. And that's why, despite everything is happening, I see some hope. People care about their children. People care about the rights of little, vulnerable kids being protected. And we are beginning to have a conversation. To say this does not mean that Morocco tolerates sex tourism. It does not mean that we promote sex tourism. No, it just means that it is there, but we need to face up to the fact that we need to talk about it seriously and do something about it.
I think you mentioned the societal conversation, but I wonder if that's happening with the protests. Now, Fadil, of course, you helped organize some of those with your Facebook page. We have a tweet here from Sarah who says, I would like to see a coherent, clear statement on exactly what the Danielgate protesters are demanding and what their plan is. Fadil?
I just want to disagree with what the lady in the tourism ministry said and say that pedophilia, I will come back to your question.
Sure.
Pedophilia is one of the biggest challenges the Moroccan society have to face right now, not tomorrow, right now, because we've been talking about pedophilia and problems and Marrakesh and tourists who come to Morocco only for this, and now perhaps with a very sadful event, we can finally talk and make the government take clear and concrete action against this problem. Pedophilia comes from poverty, but Morocco is not the only country who is poor. Other countries are poor and dealt with this problem. So the problem is, one, I think, is legal. Do you know that pedophilia isn't in the criminal law in Morocco? There is no such word as pedophilia in law books in Morocco. Second, corruption. in Morocco, you can pay your way out of any situation with money. And pedophilia is one of the situations where you can pay your way out from just by paying a policeman, judge, anyone in the administration, so that you can. And even legal, the majority of cases of pedophilia are only sentenced to a maximum of 2 years. And sadly, this last event was the best sentence taken against a pedophile, which is 30 years. And for this best sentence, we change, we give pardon to the guy. So to answer your question, what are the demands? The demands were, a lot of the demands were met, we agree. But Moroccans are used to have some promises. For example, 2 promises were made. One, a review of the pardon process so that we don't have any more problem like this one. And second, a more thorough and severe battle against pedophilia. Unfortunately, we're used to have, in time of crisis, many promises by the government, because they're cornered and they want to calm the population. But I'm sure that there will be nothing done in these two issues.
Sure. Lubna.
Okay, I want to make 2 comments here, very important. Number one, I want to go back to this idea of talking about this in society. I think this is extremely important to be actually able to break the silence. And then forget about this business of we don't have anything in our country. What's happening here, and this relates to your question, what's being demanded, what's achieved with these protests and what's happening in the country. One of the interesting achievements so far already is that within human rights groups, within women's groups, within child protection groups, we used to talk about, these cases. Within our homes and behind closed doors, we know what's going on in the country. And also, I have to credit some of the progressive media, some of the newspapers and magazines. We've had articles on this in the 80s and 90s on, male prostitution. And so we've had, talk now and then. Mm-hmm. What has been achieved now is that the conversation is out on the street. It's not just a conversation in which you have experts, human rights activists who are participating. Everybody in society wants to acknowledge the fact that, my God, there is injustice, and injustice has to have some kind of consequence for the people. So that's one thing. The other thing is we have to understand that what's happening today, what they're demanding, it's not an isolated case. Not so long ago, and I'm sure you must have heard of a very, very sad story of a 10-year-old girl by the name of Wiam, who was savagely, brutally attacked, for sexual rape, and then was almost butchered, by the attacker. There is a climate within the country where we feel, what is happening to our children? We need protection for our children. We are talking to our legislators and our lawmakers to give us a clear set of rules. And I agree, law is very important. We need mechanisms. We need monitoring mechanisms. People need to know this is a country where we have a rule of law. You hear a lot of conversation about corruption. We need to know that people, if they commit crimes, they will get the time they deserve for it. No matter who they are, where they're from, and what is the relationship of my country to the country of that predator. We need to have justice for our children. These are, after all, our future citizens of the country.
I just want to bring in Reda into the conversation. Reda, you are an attorney, you work with an NGO that tries to bring social justice to Moroccans. If you're looking at the legislation that exists right now to protect children from the child sex tourist trade, what is there? What's going on right now?
The biggest problem is that it's not that the legislation is not good. It is good enough. The criminal code provides for very harsh sentences. There's very harsh criminal penalties for abusers and rapists, especially when the child is of a young age. However, as I said before, it is the enforcement and the selective enforcement that is a problem. I will say it out loud and clear again. a poor person, therefore a poor child in Morocco, unfortunately, in the eyes of many, many, many people, government or non-governmental, is a worthless child. So you can be at a red light, drive your $200,000 Bentley, and find a 6-year-old, take them, put them in the trunk of your car, do anything you want with them. The chances that you're going to be prosecuted are slim. I admire the courage and the hard work of our judges and our police, and a lot of them are my friends, but not enough is done. We need to instill a culture of dignity in the mind of our people. Dignity and dignity for Moroccan kids.
See, Reda, there are many places. Yeah, go ahead, Fadel.
I'm not very optimistic about Morocco in this issue. For example, right now, thousands of little girls work at home as little maids. When I say thousands, it's tens of thousands of little girls at homes. In workshops, you have thousands and thousands of little boys and girls working, and I'm talking about 9 years, 10 years, 12 years. And these are easy victims or easy children that can be abused by their co-workers or by their bosses, etc. Second, our government, we have a minister of family and women and etc. She's very weak in these matters. She doesn't have, it's Mrs. Hakawi, she doesn't have a strong word against pedophilia. For example, as of today, she didn't talk about this Danielgate issue. And she's very weak. For example, one day, do you remember Amina, who was raped and forced to marry her husband?
Right, they did a show on it not too long ago.
Yeah, and she died. And she said, for example, for one of her extraordinary words, she said, I will raise my child so that she doesn't put her in a situation where she can be raped. Is this a sentence you can say to for an issue like that?
The law has not been changed.
Basima Hakawi is part of a government that is weak government.
Okay.
As of today, the Prime Minister didn't say a word about this issue.
Okay.
And the Justice Minister only once went public and talked about minor issues concerning Danielgate. So I'm not optimistic at all. These are only promises to calm people who went out on the streets. I'm sure they will not be reformed concerning this issue because there's so many interests in the judiciary, in the police, in the administration. So I'm sorry to say I'm not very optimistic.
Okay, Fadel, and then Lubna, and then Malika. We have a line up here. So Fadel, please go. Reda, please go ahead.
I totally agree with Fadel. I am not optimistic either. I'm usually very optimistic by nature, but in the history of past events, and Amina is a perfect example, the law has not been changed after Amina. So you can still marry your victim and be exonerated. So I think our government and the authorities, all the authorities of this country, are specialists, are soothing the street with minor things. A constitution here, a scapegoat, the sacking of a scapegoat there, just to let to go with the flow and let the storm go away. But deep changes don't occur, and that's very regrettable and might lead to very unhappy things.
Sure, Lubna.
But Reda and Fadel, you are my optimism. I look at you and look at your commitment, right? That's true. I mean, I am thinking, since this story started, I am thinking, so, okay, we know the reality as it is. We know about the corruption. We know about the legislation. Reda, you've been saying that there are laws. Indeed, it's not bad. I mean, we do have something to work with. So I've been trying to think pragmatically, what kind of solutions. And really, what we need is what I heard from you. I think what you're mobilizing people around you about, which is we need consistency. It doesn't matter if you're poor or rich. It doesn't matter if you're Spanish, Japanese, German, whatever, coming to my country to exploit my children. It doesn't matter who you are. You're not going to rise up, above law. And, these policy makers who right now are not with us, we have to find a way of having them, join us in protecting these children. I might be too optimistic, but the fact that I hear, your voices, your commitment, what you're doing on the ground, it gives me hope. Of course, civil society is not enough. We know that, but it's good that we have you on the ground, and we need to find partners even within, the law community, within the government, people who will believe in the cause, that justice is beyond class, it's beyond wealth, it's beyond whoever, has some kind of power.
You mentioned optimism. I want to pick up on that because there's a tweet here from Emily who gives us another reason to maybe be optimistic. She says, we're missing the bigger picture, which is that Danielgate was an unprecedented challenging of king's authority. Another person picks up, Fouad on Twitter says, now Moroccans are questioning the king's decisions openly, are tired of a king that rules and governs without being accountable. So perhaps that is another source of optimism.
Also, Rada, I can hear you. Fadel, Lubna, we are not done with this conversation yet. We're just getting that spark going. We have some optimism. We have a lot of pessimism. We'll see where we're going to go in the online post show, and that's at stream.aljazeera.com. But right now, here's Malika with some of the other stories the stream is following.
Our leads today begin with the granting of another special pardon to prison detainees, this time in Tunisia. President Monsef Marzouki officially pardoned 343 inmates on the occasion of Eid, the festival marking the end of the Muslim month of fasting. But not everyone in the country is celebrating. As the blog Khartoum notes, absent from the list of those released is Jaber Mejri, a blogger reportedly jailed for online posts deemed insulting to Islam. Activists online renewed their calls for his release, sharing images like this sketch from cartoonist Willis from Tunis. It reads, 343 prisoners pardoned, but not Mejri. Eid Mubarak, or Happy Eid, Mr. President. Our next lead takes a look at Archbishop Desmond Tutu, an iconic defender of human rights. But there's one place where the Nobel Peace Prize laureate has been accused of being too aggressive: Twitter. An account attributed to Tutu was briefly suspended after its launch, apparently for aggressively following too many users. That was news his followers were surprised to hear. One doesn't just merely block Tutu legacy and think South African tweeters will be quiet. Twitter knows this, Jesse tweets. And he was right. The account was soon restored, and Tutu tweeted his followers, Twitter says it's sorry for the inconvenience over our suspension. We got caught up in a spam cleanup. Glad it wasn't something we said. Now that he's back, you can see gems of wisdom the leader's been tweeting out, which even extend to social media. Some have described Twitter as a blessing in the hands of retired members of the clergy. One tweet reads, there is no space to ramble. Well, those are the stories we're following. Let us know what's caught your eye. Head to facebook.com/AJStream and leave us a lead suggestion. Your pitch could make our next show. Femi?
At Tutu Legacy. I am so following that. Hopefully you won't get blocked for me following it. Do you know, I've met Archbishop Desmond Tutu so many times.
And what was he like?
He's very petite, but he has a laugh that is so giant, and I don't even know how he would put that laugh onto Twitter because it's amazing.
I think his personality, though, is coming across in the tweets.
All right, so if you want to follow him, it's at Tutu Legacy. Hopefully Twitter won't block him. Thank you so much, Malika. We will be back in the post show at stream.aljazeera.com. We are talking today in the extended version of this show about child sex tourism in Morocco, and we have 3 guests that you really won't want to miss what they have to say about that next. But what we'll be doing on the next AJ stream. On Monday, we'll be looking at Mauritania. Now, back in 2007, it became the very last country in the world to abolish slavery. So that was 6 years ago. But unofficially, slavery is still going on. And we will find out why in the next AJ stream. It really is going to be a fascinating show. But right now, stay with us. The post show is next. Stream.aljazeera.com. I hardly need to tell you the address. We will see you online. Thanks for watching.
wanting to be on the street.
So we are still talking in the post show, of course, stream.aljazeera.com. Welcome back. Now we're talking about child sex abuse in Morocco and whether the public outcry over convicted child rapist Daniel Galvin might lead to the adoption of stronger protections for children. Let me remind you who our guests are today. On the set, we have Lubna Scalia Hanna, a professor at American University. On Skype from Casablanca, Reda Ulamin. He's a human rights lawyer. Also in Casablanca, Fadel Abdellaoui, a human rights activist and protest organizer. We want to get right back to the conversation. If my memory serves me correctly, Reda was about to jump back into the conversation and we were at the very end of the main show. Reda, help us get started again.
Yes, I just wanted to say before I forget, before the end of the show, that unfortunately, very often also victims are treated in sex cases, just like is the case with many other cases, victims are treated as criminals sometimes.
Can you give us an example?
You could be a street kid going to file a complaint at a police station or a court against an abuser, a rapist, and you would be yourself arrested on the spot for erring in the street or for begging or for, and you'd be sent to a failing correctional facility. So you came to file a complaint and you find yourself arrested.
It's really interesting that look, there's
I want to jump in if it's possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the other problems is that there is what I call legal pedophilia. In Morocco, you can marry a girl at the age of 12, 13, 14 if a judge accepts it. And many cases in rural areas which are poor, men can marry little girls, and judges will accept it in most of the cases. For example, there's one Muslim scholar, his name is Maghrawi, who even said you can marry 9 years old girls because 9-year-old girls may have sexual activity better than 20-year-old woman. And this Maghrawi, you need to know that Maghrawi is a friend of our Minister of Justice.
Okay, Fadel, I'm gonna stop you there because we're getting a little off track and we don't have him or any comments for him. So that makes me very concerned. And then we're going into a much broader area, into actually areas that we've all done shows on about, i.e. child marriage, very early marriage. But I really want us to stay focused, and to help us do that, I want to head back to Lubna because you actually had a question for Fadel, a very specific one.
Well, actually, I have a question.
Fadel, hold on, just Fadel, hold on 1 second. I just want to grab your attention because Lubna wanted to ask you a question. So just hold tight and have a listen to Lubna.
Well, this is a question for Fadel as well as for Reda. And my question is very simple. We can spend a lot of time talking about why this is happening. And my bet is that all of us know why this is happening, right? We've already heard it, it's from laws that exist that are not applied, it's poverty, it's corruption, pretty much, the whole list. For people watching Morocco right now, we Moroccans and non-Moroccans, if you were to tell us what needs to be done, if you were to have a conversation right now in your dream world, you were to have a meeting, with the Ministry of Justice, with the lawmakers, the specifics, how can we go about this? And the reason why I'm asking these questions, is want to move the debate
let
further.
me just ask the question first of all.
Yes.
Let's ask the question.
Sure.
All right, Fadel, while we still remember it.
The question is?
Remember the question. Don't do it again. Okay. Fadel, answer the question.
First part is education, and more specifically sex education. In Morocco, conservatism, religion, it's a taboo. Many reasons makes that people have a very, very poor sex education. And if you notice, all the last scandals in Morocco are sex related.
So Fadel, let me just help you out here because this was very specific, and I understand what Libban's trying to do. She wants the world to think that there's hope. Okay, so
she's good. Sex education is good.
She's very specific.
She's some point.
Yeah, so she's very so what would you tell your government? What would you ask them to do?
Is to combat corruption.
Okay.
Is a real battle against corruption.
Okay.
It's a big battle against corruption because this is where it starts and it ends. It's money. It's you give money to poor people and you give money to the guys who are there to protect these poor people. And then you break everything. So if they should battle something, it's corruption within the administration.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there because I want to get the community in. Reda, we will come back to you in a moment.
Well, you asked that question. This isn't a specific answer to that, but I think it works. Nadir on Twitter says, protesters want an official apology from the king and not just a propaganda visit to the families. And Reza, I'm going to play you a video comment along those same lines. Have a listen to this.
The issue here goes beyond the case of pedophilia. It indicates far deeper issues that lie within the Moroccan political system. A slogan from last night, I think, captures it. If the king knew, it's a scandal. If the king didn't know, it's a greater scandal. Regardless of which one it is, the issue here is, one, he needs to be held accountable. Two, we need an independent judiciary. Or better yet, he needs to entirely let go of politics, something he has never been fit for.
So Reza Fadl says that sex education is the answer. We just heard from this video commenter that the government is the problem, politics and corruption are the problem. What's your answer?
We need a global approach.
Thank you.
First, we need to make Morocco a rule of law governed country. We need enforcement, harsh enforcement for everybody, not for the people that we don't like. We need to enforce the law on everybody. When somebody breaks the law, when somebody abuses a kid, no matter how rich or powerful they are, they should go to jail. That's number one. Number two, if we look at the victims, most of them, as I said, are from a poor socioeconomic background. So let's do something for the poor. Do you know that the street kids have nowhere to go? There's one or two orphanages in Casablanca for 6 million people. So this is a disaster. It is a shame for Morocco. It is a shame for the rulers of this country. It is a shame. So we need to tackle the economic problems as well. Give them a stipend, feed them, do something with them, take them, for God's sake, take them off the streets.
Fadl,
That's number two. Number three, I would like to add just two
May I say
points.
something,
And number three, we need to instill in the people and in the government and in the rulers of this country a culture of dignity.
Yes.
This is a question, to my opinion, of Arab and Moroccan mentality that human dignity is not that important. What's important is who's your father? Who are you? How much are you worth? And we need to change this mentality before we go anywhere.
Fadl, and then Lubna.
And I agree with the last audio comment about
The government and corruption.
This problem of Danielgate is not related only to pedophilia. It's related to a bigger and broader problem related to the powers, the separation of power between the royal cabinet and the rest of the institution and the people. In this case, for example, there are too many pardons that are granted, 1,000 pardons. It's true that within this 1,000 pardons that were granted the same day, there's not only Danielgate, there are other people who do not deserve to go out. And second, I think that the cabinet has the royal cabinet has too much power and is not accountable for their actions. So this has to change because we need to have. If you take action, you should be. You can be criticized about this action.
Lubna.
I just find myself agreeing with what I'm hearing. But I just want to emphasize that indeed it is a comprehensive approach that we need. This isn't about should we, start with education, should we, have mechanisms for, mechanisms to monitor, the application of law and everything.
Right.
We need a comprehensive approach because we're all invested in this.
Okay.
But also what I have not heard is that, well, actually Reda mentioned this a little bit, is that, we need to have some programs for rehabilitation. What happens, to these little kids who are very often, he said, criminalized. So instead of throwing them in jail, these are traumatized kids. There's going to be, and of course, I know that there are some, institutions out there will tell us we are taking care of them, but we really need to have, institutions that actually not only protect, but prevention, that's where education comes in, but also post, these tragedies, what do we do with these children?
Sure. I'm hearing an outbreak of agreement from Reda, from Fadl. Lubna obviously agrees with the points you've been making. Malika?
Our online community definitely agrees.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you all very much for helping us actually get a little bit more insight, hearing the debate that is actually happening about child sex tourism in Morocco. So where do we go next? What subject can we think up to do on the next AJ stream? Well, on Monday, we look at Mauritania. Now, back in 2007, it became the very last country in the world to abolish slavery. But unofficially, slavery is still going on. We will find out why in the next AJ stream. Until then, we'll always be online. Thank you for watching.